Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is the 49 Days of Carolina Bible Camp. If you've not seen all the stuff on Facebook, where have you been? There's been a lot of stuff out there, and today we are blessed to have just a wonderful man. He's been a friend of mine for I don't know how many years now. I met him at Carolina Bible Camp week 3, and he was bigger than me at that time, wearing muscle shirts and just a real stud muffin walking around camp like, mess with me.
You have to have muscle to wear a muscle shirt, Andy.
All right. Well, David works both week 3 and week 7. He's been a real blessing to me at week 7 and also at week 3 over the years when I worked with him there. David, it's been, like I say, it's been an honor getting to know you, brother, and just, having somebody that you can call at any moment when you have a need. Brother, that's you. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate your heart, first of all, that you give to Carolina Bible Camp, all the time that you give. And so I wanted to just take a few minutes just to interview you and let the people know who you are that I know. So that's the blessing of doing these interviews. So I'm going to start off with, what's it like not being able to go to camp this year? What's your
Man, you can't put that into words, man. I mean, you know that like everybody else, Andy, CBC is my happy place. And certainly, especially for my boys, my son Jack and my son Isaiah, particularly for them. And the whole family loves CBC, but particularly for myself and my boys, CBC is absolutely our happy place. It's, when you get done at the end of one week, you just can't wait for the year to roll around again. And it just you never want to leave. I'm sorry, let me mute that. You don't ever want to leave. And all you do is just spend the whole year waiting to get back. So it's difficult, man, because, it's a recharge. It's hard to explain how 1 week can recharge you for an entire year or 2 weeks like I do. But we're missing it bad, man. We really are. It's just part of our lives now. And it's like not being able to go to a family reunion.
right? So during week 3, you're what, education director? Or what is it?
No, I've been several things in week 3. I've been head counselor. I've been an assistant director at week 3. And really, I don't really have a title right now except for, hey, David, go do that thing. So I'm kind of Jared's, gopher, lackey, whatever you want to call him. But I don't really have except for teacher. I do teach every day, and I preach, of course, and all that. But really, just kind of whatever needs to be done.
Good deal. Well, I know you put your heart into whatever you do, and the kids love you for that. I know the staff enjoys working with you, man. So how many summers has it been for you that you've been working at Carolina Bible Camp?
We started going in 2008, and it's really funny that the way that we started going, I'm going to put these accidents in quotes because I don't believe in accidents like these. But Wilson Burton just happened to come to Morehead City on vacation where I had begun preaching. And I had been looking for a camp to go to with my family. My oldest son at the time was 8. And there weren't any camps that I could take him to because I don't like to leave my kids for that kind of thing. And so I just happened to mention to Wilson, or he mentioned to me about camp. And I said, well, my kids are too young to go to other camps. Can I bring them to CBC? And he said, absolutely. And he said, we need a teacher. You need to come on. And so that was in 2008. And Jack, I think, was around 8. Isaiah was tiny. My daughter was tiny. And Andy, Isaiah has grown up at camp. Isaiah literally has just roamed that place since he was very small, and has been in Cabin 8 the whole time. And he really loves to point out that, the Cabin 8 is his favorite place to be at CBC. And so, but we started in 2008, and we've been every summer at least 1 week, and now 2 since that time.
Well, I know that the experiences you've had over the years have just been amazing, and you've been a blessing to many. This next question is going to be a really hard one. Everybody struggles with this. What keeps you coming back?
Well, I'll tell you something. I almost didn't come back. after my first year, I almost didn't return. And the reason, and I think I'm going to tell the story because I think there's some value in it for people who may not come because they're nervous about it or whatever. So, Andy, I didn't know, I'm not from here. I'm from Kentucky. And I don't really live near many people that go to camp, or at least I didn't know it at the time. And so when I and my family came to camp, I didn't know anybody. The people were great. The people were fantastic. Everybody was wonderful. But you know how it is when you don't know anybody. I felt out of place. I was teaching in the morning, and you can identify with this or at least understand it. I was teaching in the morning, and then past that, I didn't really have anything to do. I didn't have a role, and I didn't know how to ask and jump in to do things. And so it was, I'll just be honest with you, Andy, it was boring. I mean, I got done teaching there and I had nothing to do all day, and I didn't know anybody. And it was rough. I was really tough. And so finally, at some point, I asked Fish and Duke if I could help out with athletics, and really became good friends with them. They were really some of the first good friends I had at camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned to kind of get in and do some things. So, Andy, I almost didn't come back. And the reason I tell that story is because people need to know that camp can be tough if it's your first time and if you don't know many people.
Yeah.
But if you will go, if you will give it a chance, and if you will take some steps to go out and meet some people and interact, you will never want to leave camp. And I'm so glad that I did reach out. I'm glad that I came back, because now it's just my family. And so what kept me coming back, Andy, was several things. First of all, above all the people, the adults and the kids. I just so love being around such encouraging people. And I keep coming back because I want to keep seeing the people. I also come back because it gives me a chance to serve. It gives me a chance to have an impact in a big way and do something that's important. I feel like that I've contributed something when the week is over that means something. And so it's the people and it's the chance to contribute to something that matters.
Well, you can probably attest to this, and that's when you come home from Carolina Bible Camp, you may be tired, you may be worn out, but you're full, right? Your spiritual health is full. Such a blessing.
Absolutely.
Well, do you have a favorite memory of camp that you like to share?
That's the tough one to me, is what is the favorite memory, because there's so many of them. And Andy, when I think about memories from camp, it runs the gamut of grief, sadness, tragedy, and in a lot of ways. I mean, in a lot of different ways. I mean, Andy, the things that we go through at camp, we deal with things that people are, with kids that have a tough home life,
yes,
adults that are going through difficulty. Camp runs the spectrum from dealing with grief to dealing with absolute joy. And so when I think about camp and memories, I can just, it's almost like my life passing before my eyes. I can see that whole range of emotions of myself and other people. So this was the hard one for me, was picking out a memory. Several things came to mind, but I have to tell you that the favorite memories that I have are of being either on the back of the craft deck or the gazebo in the teaching that I do to the older kids. And I love all the kids. I love teaching all of them, but I really, really enjoy those older classes. And my favorite memories are of standing in the gazebo or on the back deck, walking around, talking to those kids, giving them a Bible lesson, joking with them, making application with them, hearing their insights. I always learn a lot from them, hearing their applications, hearing their questions, the depth of the questions that they ask, and just that interaction in the gazebo or on the craft deck with those kids is my favorite part of camp. And then when class is over,
People don't get
You
this
got
part of
me.
camp.
You got me. You did this on purpose. You know I'm easy. Um, when class is over, to have kids come up to you before they go to the next thing and have more questions. You know, they could take off and go somewhere else, but they come up to you and they'll stand in a group and ask you more questions, and they'll ask you for clarification. They say, hey, it made me think of something. Um,
Well, I'll lighten the mood while you compose yourself, my friend.
that's it.
Uh, I can remember years ago. This was I think it was during week 3. You're sitting over there. You're across the dining hall from me, and I think I said to Rob Morey, I said, "Hey, watch this." And we're all getting ready to eat, and you're sitting there, and you're just ready to eat, and David, you just squirm. You look at all these kids, how they eat, and just the messes, the germs, and you're sitting there, and I walk over and I pick up your fork and I stick it in my mouth, lick it, set it back down on the table, and all you can do is just kind of push everything away.
Yeah, see, that's my least favorite part of camp. And now I know I'm setting myself up, but to have to eat in there with those messy kids who don't know how to use a napkin, they don't know how to use a fork. I just sit with my head down, until I'm done, because I can't look. It's just gross. And then there's Dean, who's the worst offender of everything. So yeah, it's a tough
You
part
got
of
me
camp.
tearing up from laughing.
The food is awesome, but the eating experience because of the kids is a little less than awesome.
Well, let's move on to the next question here. If you have a kid and it's his first time ever going to Carolina Bible Camp, what would you say to him?
Oh my goodness. First of all, if there was a kid who wasn't going to CBC, I would have a discussion with that kid. And I would absolutely do everything I could to get the child to go. Because it's the most impactful experience you can have. The friends that you make, the relationships that you form are lifelong.
Amen. Yeah.
The teaching that you get, the memory, just the one memory after the other. I would just tell a kid that you just got to go. Look, you've got to go and you've got to try it. And, Andy, we get kids occasionally that will go and they don't really care for it the first year. They're homesick. Sometimes, so typically what happens is you'll get a kid and he'll say, or she'll say, I'm not coming back. I didn't like it. And you show up the next year, Andy, and who do you see? They're piling out of the car because they liked it more than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't come back. And I would say to that child, try it one more time. Give it one more effort, and try it one more time, because if you will, you'll be rewarded with the greatest experience in your life.
Amen to that. And how many of those kids have reached in and grabbed your heart and just held on to it?
My goodness, man, more than I can say, man, more than I can say.
And how many times do you get that text from one of those campers? Hey, Mr. David, thank you for what you did.
Andy, I got some notes last year from some of my class, and one in particular I think of that, we were friendly and everything. We had a fine relationship, but what they put in the note about the impact of the classes and the teaching and things like that, I had no idea. I had no idea that sort of impact was happening. And it is happening. And not every kid is going to come up to you and say, hey, man, I appreciate what you're doing. A lot of kids don't know how to do that. They don't know how to really express appreciation. But, man, the impact that we're having on those kids is profound. It's lifelong. And the impact that they have on us is unspeakable.
I agree with that statement so much right there. Well, as we're getting ready to finish out this question and answer segment here, I've got one last question for you, and I just want to you probably can't pick one person. If there's one person or a couple that you've met at camp along the ways, whether it's staff or campers, and they left an impression on you? Who was that person?
Well, nobody leaves a bigger impression than Dean, but you're asking for a good impression, and so I'll
Yes,
give you
yes.
that. So, so what I would say, Andy, about that is it's a group of people. As I mentioned, when I started going, it was because of Wilson Burton, and that generation of men. I kind of got in on the tail end of that. Those guys were old when I started going, and they were just finishing out their career at Carolina Bible Camp. And after I was blessed enough to be put in the staff cabin, I got to hang out with those guys. And Wilson, Billy Voss, Ronnie Olry, and those guys were in that cabin. I was blessed to room with Billy several years before Billy was unable to come anymore. And we used to have what I call bedtime stories with Billy.
Oh yeah.
And so those guys would sit around and tell stories of when there wasn't one location for CBC. They had to move around. And the stories about, and I can't remember the sister's name, Andy, but she'd make, a meal in that big pot and stir it with a boat oar.
Yes.
And they would tell those stories. And what stands out to me more than anything is hearing Wilson tell about when they purchased where camp is now, what it was, and as they gradually cleared it out. And just Andy, it was the weirdest thing. And I've had very few experiences like this. It was the weirdest thing, but I sat there and I was overwhelmed with this feeling of thinking about camp and just hills and trees, and then camp as I know it. Well, a great dining hall, craft cabin, air-conditioned cabins. Dude, that's a luxurious camp. I mean, people who've never been to other camps, they don't understand. I've been to camps, no air. You go to the bathroom outside. Shoot, I was raised in Kentucky. We all go to the bathroom outside. And so, camp to me is a luxurious place. And it wasn't that at one time. And to think about those men who literally did camp when it was hard, when it was roughing it, who literally with their own hands cleared the land. They literally built the buildings. They literally went out and drummed up the money. I mean, I was overcome with this appreciation for those men and for what they did. And I kind of unofficially made it my mission to try to pass that on to generations who would come after them and who would come after me. And Andy, you've been there a lot longer than me. You can speak to that a lot more than I can. Jared can speak to that a lot more than I can. But anyway, to answer your question, the people that had the biggest impact on me was that generation of men who created Carolina Bible Camp, who literally built Carolina Bible Camp. Andy, without those men, Wilson and Randall and those men and others that that I don't know, we don't have Carolina Bible Camp. And I can't be thankful enough to that generation who've given us the greatest gift that young people could ever be given and that we could ever be given. I just can't put it into words.
Well, I don't know if you remember last year during week 7, we acknowledged Edwin Boger.
I do.
Yes. And I am so thankful we did that back last summer because, he passed away a couple months ago. And he was just a blessing. You see him out there watering flowers. You see him out there. He'd come up there and work all the time to do things at camp because he loved that camp and what it did for the kids. You're, as you say, Wilson, he called Melissa and I up one time and said, "Hey, I need y'all as head counselors week 3." And that's what got us started on week 3. And he's missed. He is really missed. Well,
I
brother,
love Andy. I just wanted to say how much I love the fact that even in his final resting place, he gets to sit up there and see who's going in and out of
yeah,
CBC. That's the most awesome thing I've ever seen.
I could hear him standing up there at the podium in the dining hall. Get quiet, kids. Quiet.
He said, we do mail call if y'all be quiet for a minute.
He said it like 7 times. Finally, everybody get quiet. Yeah. Oh,
And
there's.
he loved the Chuck Norris joke. He really loved the Chuck
Oh,
Norris.
yeah. And you know, Dean's such a good Chuck Norris teller, you know, joke teller. Uh, I've got to interview him one point. That's going to be a long interview right there, I bet.
Prayers.
Well, brother, I appreciate the time. It's always an honor to get to spend some time with you, talking to you, and just reminiscing about the times we've had at camp. And brother, I can't thank you enough for the things that you've done for Carolina Bible Camp and the impact that you've had on our kids. It's going to be a lifelong impact. And keep up the good work. You humble me when you preach. You humble me when you teach. Your lessons every day have just been wonderful. And I just thank you so much. And I'm just blessed to call you friend.
Andy, I appreciate that. And I want to acknowledge you. You know, one thing that I was thinking about, Andy, when I was talking about Wilson, Billy, and those guys, is that we need to acknowledge people when they're alive. You know, we need to let them know. And you have certainly been an unbelievable presence at Carolina Bible Camp. No way to put into words the impact that you've had on adults and kids alike. And so I just want to acknowledge you, Andy, and I know you don't like that kind of thing, and that's one reason I love you. But I do. I mean, and it needs to be done, and we need to express our appreciation to you. So thank you. Thank you for what you do for me personally, Andy. You and I don't get to see each other as much as we would like to, but I will tell you that you are on my mind on a regular basis. You constantly encourage me to be a better man, even when we don't see each other much. And I just want you to know that.
No, I appreciate that, brother. Well, as we finish this out, we're doing this 49 days of Carolina Bible Camp. And this challenge has been out there. And there's a lot of things going on right now. Wearing your favorite Carolina Bible Camp shirt. We both have our shirts on. This is from last year. It's home. Can't really
That's
see
what
it.
I got on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That was the most amazing week of camp I think I've ever experienced.
It was awesome.
And
it
was a pleasure being there with you. So
Absolutely.
if you can, take the opportunity to check out Carolina Bible Camp. Listen to these interviews with these people. These people have put their heart and soul into the work of Carolina Bible Camp. David, just want to say I love you, brother. And we will talk again, all right?
Sounds good. Love you, brother. Love everybody.
See you, man.